All right, hello and welcome back to Twin Cities Territory, our Minnesota Twins podcast here on the Foul Territory Network. And we are coming to you on Wednesday, April 22nd, fresh off a pretty fun win for the Twins over the reeling New York Mets, who lost their 12th straight game. It was a heck of a game, guys. Twins looked pretty helpless through the first 5 innings against Nolan McLean. But were able to muster a rally, win the game. Bullpen stepped up, bats came through when they needed to, and overall, Dan, who was there at Cold City Field, probably an important win for a team that had just come off a 4-game losing streak.
Yeah, it was, especially the bullpen, delivering after a really tough weekend where they blew a couple leads on Saturday, Sunday. And put in 4 perfect innings up. And it was really funny, by the way, we were talking about last night. Nolan McLean had 5 perfect innings to start the game. The Twins bullpen finished it with 4 perfect innings. So we did see sort of a reverse perfect game last night. But to see them rally the way they did, because they looked helpless, listless, just deflated the first 5 innings. Not a single hard hit ball. There was one. A hard hit ball is 95.0 miles per hour. The hardest hit ball the Twins had was 94.9. They struck out 8 times. There was just a lot of weak contact when they were able to make it. We did a little mock cheer when they put the ball in play 3 times, and I think it was the 4th inning because they put the ball in play 3 times. I mean, McLean was that good. This is my 20th season covering baseball. I have never covered a no-hitter. I thought there was a really good chance last night was going to be the night. I've seen the Cubs win the World Series in person. I saw Bonds tie Hank Aaron, seen a couple of cycles, never seen a no-hitter. Nolan McLean had the stuff last night. And
what's the closest you've come to seeing a no-hitter?
Technically, I started out the Dylan Cease 8 2/3 game against the Twins in 2022. I left during the middle of the game. So that was technically, I started that game. I've gone into the 8th inning a couple times. Kenta Maeda had a really good game in the 2020 season for the Twins, but that whole year is blocked out of my memory. I can't remember how close he got. It was very close. I think he was like 7 2/3 or something like that. I've never really gotten that close, and it felt like that was the way it was going. They turned it up, and they came back, and Byron Buxton, first Matt Wallner singled. Buxton then homered, and Buxton said Wallner woke them up, because they weren't worried about getting a hit anymore. They could focus on just putting together good at-bats. But Buxton's home run definitely caught the attention of that stadium. And the Mets are miserable right now. You could sense the fans' angst with every little swing, and that was a big one. So when Buxton did that, it was like, oh, this actually could happen. And, man, it's hilarious that the Twins with – effectively a $75 million payroll took down the Mets with their $200+ million payroll and added to their 12th straight victory, or 12th straight loss, their longest losing streak since 2002. There was some comedy in that for sure.
I guess it's like a ESPN debate show hot take, maybe it's mild, I don't know, but I think it was the best win of the season so far for the Twins, just because they've had some come from behind victories to this point, but usually it was the kind where like they get down 1-0 and then score 7 runs and win 7-4, whatever, that sort of thing. I know it's game 23. I know the Mets are now by record the worst team in baseball, so my usual caveat of not overreacting, but like we talked about it on a Monday show, Tyler, you're playing a team that is desperate for a win, 11 straight losses going into yesterday, and I think like as it hit 10 and then 11, the noise around it has really amplified. It's become a national story now, like how bad the Mets have been. And so you're going in there, they're hungry. You're on a losing streak, of your own at 4 games, getting absolutely dominated by Nolan McLean for 5 innings. Meanwhile, Simeon Woods Richardson was laboring through that game. Like the Mets were not fooled by his splitter at all. It was like a split, just let that one go. It's going to fall out of the zone for a ball. And then he makes that mistake to Lindor on 3-2. I mean, he wanted to throw a strike, obviously, but it was middle. Lindor puts it in the third deck. And, like, the stadium celebrated like it was
they wanted it.
Yeah, like it was an eighth or ninth inning game changing home run or an October home run, and they should, because they're that desperate for a win. It was a huge moment, and that's like my point is, like, halfway through that game, perfect game against you, you're down 3-0. I think that feeling of we'll get them tomorrow could have crept in pretty easily. It didn't. They obviously came back. The bullpen reversed the perfect game, as Dan pointed out. But what I'm getting to, my question for Tyler is, I feel like that is the kind of game, regardless of the opponent, regardless of the circumstances, that you can look back on in July, August, September, if you're still contending. And if it's Tarek Skubal or someone else who's dominating you, you can go, hey, like, we've been here before and we know we can still win this game.
Yeah. I kind of mentioned that about the Detroit series when that happened, and same thing for this one. That's McLean. He's Team USA. He's kind of probably their best guy rolling right now. Like, you hung with him, I guess. He got you for a while. Sim's defense. When he left the game, it was still close. It was never, like you said, it was always within reach. But that 3-run homer, like, that's that dip, and you're just like, okay, Lindor's here. We don't have a base runner yet. Like, what are we going to do? And, to, like, Dan's point to what Buck said, he's like, the door was open with Wallner's knock. That kind of, all right, the weight's lifted off. And that's what we keep coming back to, that point. It's got to be somebody different every game. And it still kind of is. Like, Byron did his thing, but it took guys getting on base and things like that to make his homer more valuable. You give a bunch of solo shots, you're going to be okay, but you give a bunch of 3-run homers, you're going to lose those games. And so, as a hitter, like, to Buck's point, you can kind of take that breath and now know next time around, like, hey, we got this. We can battle this out. We can hold off. Get to a team's bullpen, which obviously last night paid huge dividends. Like, being patient. Obviously Williams' inning kind of fell apart on him there, but that's sometimes how you got to work. You just got to fight through the starter, whoever it is, and stay in the game, which I think the Twins so far can do. Guys have been putting up 5-6 innings with a couple runs. That's a good recipe for success. And then, Sands comes in and close the door. It's a 2-inning outing. So, like, is he available tonight? Probably not. I don't know how efficient he was on his pitch count, but, it's a huge one down the road that will be, a stepping stone, like you said, for some guys, maybe.
Oh no. We've lost Tyler, Dan Hayes. We'll see if we get him back, and I will try to get Dan in here. Hey, Dan. So it's just you and me for now. We'll keep going.
Yes.
I'm sure Tyler will call back, but yes, go ahead, Dan.
There was a win. Their first win in the season was similar feeling. The Saturday win in Baltimore, where it was a team effort, where it took everybody on that group to win. You had Luke Keeschel with 2 big hits last night. You had Wallner with the bases loaded walk, but also the single. Cody Clemens doubled. Cody Clemens got the bunt down that set up that disaster 9th inning.
He's back. We're going to get him in here. Yes. He's back.
I don't know how my phone rang. It freaked out. I had it on Do Not Disturb. I'm new here. But yeah, all that said, it's a huge win because that's a big step forward. Late push, all the good things, and it's and you buried a team that really needed a win. They're down bad today. It's a bad day in where they Manhattan. What is it? Not the Bronx.
Queens.
In Manhattan, right?
We covered that last time. Yes.
Hey, on what I was saying while you're down there, Duff, for a second. This team had a win like this in Baltimore, that first win where everybody contributed.
Yeah.
And it felt like this is going to be a team that does that for each other all year. This is one of those, we've got each other's backs, and you saw contributions across the board. I mean, Bonda looked as good as he has all season. He had his velocity back. And I'll tell you, I had a nice long conversation with him about a week ago where he was freaking out about his velocity being down from 95.5 to 92 plus this year. And he finally hit some 95s last night. Topa looked good. Like you said, Cole Sands had 2. But then you had Keeschel with 2 big hits. Cody Clemens doubled to set up the game time rally and then dropped down the bunt perfectly that led to the ninth inning gaff by Vientos trying to cut down the lead runner at third. Wallner had the single, and they drew a bases loaded walk. Everywhere you looked, there were contributions, and I think that's going to be there's going to be some similar wins like this where they're fun wins, and they are the kind of that I think we'll end up having multiple best wins this season kind of candidates because this group really likes each other and doesn't and wants to play for each other. I mean, you can tell they do. They're fired up. The post game celebrations. There's sort of that group that the survivors of last year's trade deadline. They are a strong core. Buxton, Ober, Jeffers, Pablo, who's here, by the way, and acted as the $21 million interpreter yesterday for Kendra Rojas because the Twins don't have an interpreter. And then Joe Ryan. There's that group and Trevor Larnach even, there's that group of guys that's back that's sort of banded together. And I think their energy is good for the rest of the group because you have young guys who want to come up and make an impression, but they like playing for each other. That's very clear. And it was a good emotional day because I got to celebrate Taylor Rogers before the game too for his 10 years in the bigs. And I think, this team really, they dig each other. And I think that can be infectious, and not saying it's more than a 500 team as it's currently constructed, but also it could be a real fun and interesting team compared to where everyone's expectations were. OG 4.3 percenters were looking at you. So,
amen. It's entirely possible, of course, that with 2 games left in this series, that the tone will shift before Friday. But such is the case of a long baseball season. We'll take a quick break. We've got more to talk about, including more about Mick Abel's trip to the IL and what the Twins will do with him out, which includes a start from Connor Prielipp in Wednesday's game. But we'll be right back with that after a word from our sponsor. Hey guys, as you know, I'm trying to get my family to a Minnesota Twins game this year, and that's why today's sponsor for this episode is so perfect. It is SeatGeek. With over 35 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are more than 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek. You've got sports, you've got concerts, anything you could ask for. MLB just started. If you're trying to go to a baseball game like me, SeatGeek is MLB's official ticket marketplace, and your tickets are fully guaranteed and instantly fulfilled in your account after your purchase. I'm actually using SeatGeek right now, trying to find tickets to tonight's Minnesota Wild playoff game against the Dallas Stars. Got this handy color-coded system. Green dots mean it's a good deal. Red dots mean it's bad. Plus, every ticket is backed by SeatGeek's buyer guarantee. And of course, I have a code for you guys. You can use code Territory10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code Territory10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. And it's all thanks to you, SeatGeek.
Golf claps?
How'd I do, guys?
Golf claps.
Nailed it.
Little production glitch at the end.
Your previous announcing experience paid off right there. You sounded. You're now reading.
What?
You're reading every time. There's not a chance.
One take Pierce. That's what they call me. Anyway, any other lingering items? I guess just one last shout out. I think we spent the bulk of Monday's show lamenting the bullpen's issues over the weekend in the Reds series. The game Tuesday was just a complete inversion of that series. The starting pitching, Woods Richardson, he managed it okay and got out with just the Lindor home run, but definitely was the weakest spot of the game. And then the bats did come through in the clutch in this one, and the bullpen stepped up big time. And I forget if there was any errors or not, but it seemed like a pretty clean game to me. Certainly not.
Yeah, it was.
Down the stretch.
Hey, Tyler, you were talking about the bullpen and wondering if they use lanes. Just talk about that a little bit, like what you meant, because I know what you mean.
Yeah, the roles, we've talked about having roles and the closer and things like that a lot, and what the tide has kind of turned to, and the Rays, I guess we can thank them or not for this, but they devised a system that basically they predict how certain relievers are going to be effective against certain hitters. And for the most part, they try to set you up for success. Obviously, there's pinch hitting and all the other variables in a baseball game, but it sounds to me like what the Twins are going to try to do for the year. If they're not going to get a closer and lock him in as a guy, you show up to the field. Sometimes it's a sheet of paper. Sometimes it's just a coach. You get out to the bullpen. LaTroy's got it in his book if you want to see it, and he's going to be like, yeah, like, for me it was, the ones that come to mind, it was like Detroit, and it was going to be like, Kinsler, JD Martinez, Miguel Cabrera in the 7th or 8th. Like, that was just what I was going to do that day. Cleveland, it was going to be Lindor and Ramirez and somebody else, and it was just like, okay, like, which is great because, like, what's coming, but then it definitely, when it's not your turn and you can see it, you're like, well, I'm not pitching today. And sometimes you check out and then it's still you, and that's when it backfires because it's like, oh, there's lefties coming up, or whatever it may be. But it's hopefully it's something that they can maintain and make work. And guys going 2 innings at a time works, but you also need rest in between those. And towards the end of the year, those get taxing. So it's they've had their ups and downs already, and I think it'll iron itself out. It always seems to, or the Twins keep playing well and go make some noise and go get a big time closer from somebody. You never know.
The thing I liked about it, that was absolutely the case with Bonda, and mentioned that he had his velocity, but they had 2 lefties scheduled for the inning that Bonda came in, and they pinch hit multiple right-handers. So Bonda didn't face a single lefty in that bunch. It was clear that was his lane, was, hey, we're going to put you in. I think he came in the 6th when it was 3-2. And I liked the way he responded because he clearly got a different batch of hitters than he was going to. And he looked really good. He struck out 2. Just had an easy inning, hit one of his best innings. And if he ever gets back to the 98, 99 he was throwing last year, they will have a real weapon in him that can pitch more higher leverage spots later in games. Obviously, they're trying to get him healthy. It had been 6 days since his last appearance when he pitched yesterday, but he said he felt good last night. Just seeing him adjust was huge because you're right. I think they're going to mix and match. And this is, lanes. This is mix and match. This is what we've always heard in bullpens. It's very, I just saw an interview with John Schneider and Dave Roberts talk about the 9th inning of Game 7 of the World Series and like how that was a perfect, essentially, lane for Jeff Hoffman. That's going to be how this bullpen gets by, and we'll see them have their hiccups. There's no question. It's not a stuffed group unless Andrew Morris is in a dedicated short inning role and he could throw 98. And yeah, absolutely. But if he's asked to throw 2-3 innings, you got to conserve a little bit and you throw 95, 96, and you'll see a difference. So if you don't have pure stuff guys and you don't have guys that are in set roles as pure stuff guys, you're going to have to do this all season. And we'll see them scramble at times without question. But that's why you applaud the good ones like this.
Yeah, I think, too, on Bonda particularly, we can't forget that he was in the World Series last year and pitched for, 9 months. So it's that old World Series hangover thing is real, and his body may just still be, like, getting acclimated. It's come July, August, like, he's going to be who he is. I think there's just it's, getting your feet under you, settling in a new spot, the whole thing. And, I think he'll end up being just fine.
To go from pitching high leverage for the Dodgers to a makeshift bullpen that the Twins have, there's no difference there.
No difference at all.
Not at all. And with that, we transition to tonight, second game of the series, and this is going to be the Major League debut, correct, for Connor Prielipp.
Yes.
Beer shower inbound. Called up
the other day after Mick Abel was sent to the injury list. We talked about that in our special little bonus show on Monday. Prielipp, 25 years old, was or is so far 1-0 with a 2.3 ERA at AAA St. Paul in 4 games this year. Dan, what else do we need to know about the Twins' new starter?
Yeah, minor league pitcher of the year last year. And it was partly because he finally was healthy and on the field. He had 82 and a third innings, or 82 and two thirds innings last year, struck out 98. Prior to last year, we're talking about with that 82 and two thirds, he now between college and the minors over 6 seasons, dating back to 2020, has 156 in the third innings. He's had 2 Tommy Johns. He's got electric stuff still. He throws 95. I would love to see what it looks like out of the bullpen. But last year they had him on like a 6-day schedule. They basically pitched him once a series, and it was to build up his workload because he hadn't pitched at that point. I mean, he has 128 and a third professional innings, and 82 and two thirds of them came last year. He got drafted in 2022. He's been on the sideline for a long time. So he's still young in his development, even though he's already 25. And he started to add a curveball in this year. A guy they've been very excited about. Our Athletic Top 40 Twins prospect rankings had him number 5. I think that's a pretty accurate read. It's a guy who definitely they would like to see succeed, being the 48th overall pick. And he's a no frills guy. He was not. He did not. You can tell he's excited to be here, but he's pretty low key. Loves to golf. We asked him for a description on getting called up, and he just said it was awesome. And that was it. That was the whole. So I think he does a lot of his talking with his stuff, and he's a guy that will go at hitters, and he's catching the opponents at the right time. Although Juan Soto does return tonight, I believe, for the Mets.
There it is.
So that should be throw a little wrinkle in there, and but the Mets are down so much, and I think he got to be on the team plane on Monday with them. He was here. He came up at the same time as Kendry Rojas, and spent yesterday in the clubhouse. That was kind of crazy. Taylor Rogers said that. One of the reporters asked Taylor, is it weird that on your 10-year service time that 2 guys are celebrating their first day in a big league clubhouse? And it gave a good answer about that. And so Rojas and Prielipp got to experience yesterday together. And I think, that should help settle him in a little bit so that it's not just show up in New York and go from St. Paul to New York and just be there and get going. So it should be fun to watch tonight. Definitely a lot of talent there.
Well, a little different than when I got called up and I watched David Price debut for the Blue Jays, and then I had to face him the next day.
Amazing.
Wow.
He's also from Tomah, Wisconsin, which, of course, is where the 94 and 90 freeways come together. Famous.
I pass it all the time driving on my commute.
Convenient to get to southern Minnesota or the Twin Cities. It's perfect. Tyler, when you watch a pitcher make his major league debut, anything you have your eye on in particular?
Yeah, like you look for the yank, like off speed that's just in the other box, or the fastballs that are flying arm side. That's a pretty common. You try and do a little more sometimes. It's one though. Some guys show up and they're just locked in. It may be useful. I'm assuming they were at the game last night. I don't know how that works when you're taxi, if you can go outside or if you got to stay in the clubhouse, whatever. But they got to experience it. They got to experience a fun win. Stuff like that matters. And to my point about my debut, like I had the antithesis of that, and so it's just it'll be a fun one, man. It's one you're warming up. You're just adrenaline is buzzing. One of my good friends equated it to trying to dance without being able to feel your legs. It's just like sometimes you're just floating. You don't really know what's going on. And you blink and it's over. But, it's one, if he comes out and trusts his stuff, obviously he's got electric, fastball, and I'm sure he's got great off speed to follow it, being the prospect he is. So it's just one, go out and attack. That's all you can really do, and let your stuff speak for itself. Because if you start trying to get cute, an inning will get away from you really fast, and next thing you know, you'll be on that 6 a.m. flight back to St. Paul. So just go out there and have some fun, and let it fly, man. Worst that can happen, you can give up a homer to Juan Soto.
He'll get the start, and I wouldn't be shocked because Kendry Rojas has piggybacked before. I wouldn't be shocked if we see Kendry Rojas get in this game tonight and follow him. And Rojas will throw 98, 99. Both of them have really good secondary stuff. Rojas started to get loose last night when the Twins were down 3-0, and then Buxton homered. And quickly Rojas sat down at that point because they weren't going to give him a one-run game. But this should be if you're a Twins fan and you're looking for intrigue about the future, this is a kind of a must-watch game, in my opinion, just because these two guys, they're number 5 and 9 prospects in the system. They're the top 2 pitching prospects in the system right now. And that 1 through 10, 1 through 11 in the Twins pitching or overall system is pretty talented. I mean, when you get down to like the 10th or 11th guys in the system, you're still talking about guys who look like they could be regular major leaguers, regular guys. Not a lot of systems have that depth. And so that should be, I mean, if Rojas gets in, this is the guy that came over as the main guy in the Louis Varland trade. And the front office was very excited, even though he is not from Brainerd, even though he is not from St. Paul like Louis Varland. He's 5 years younger than Louis Varland, and he has electric stuff. And so I think this should be kind of a fun watch, even expecting hiccups. We don't know what they're going to do. Because the crowd last night, we saw it, and I'm sure you guys heard it in the background. But when Austin Warren came in with the bases loaded after Devin Williams' just flub of an inning, the crowd really got going real quick. They're looking for anything right now, and it's the Mets fans. There's any signs of life, and rookies tend to provide that with a ill-timed walk or a wild pitch or a balk or anything. And so like Austin Warren gets going, and there's Austin Warren MVP chants and Austin Warren. It was amazing. Mets fans are looking for anything right now, and so this could go sideways quick for the Twins, no question. But also, I'm just looking forward to seeing what these guys have and how it can play out at this level.
Yeah, kind of the theme of this season is seeing what they've got everywhere across the board. On Monday, we asked for your Twins questions, and we got a few. So we thought we'd take a minute to answer. Somebody asked us what the Twins will do without Mick Abel for 2 weeks. I think we've pretty well covered that between the follow-up show we did on Monday and then that segment just now.
Yeah, I think Connor Prielipp is going to be the guy for now. Kendry Rojas is the guy that's probably here temporarily because Cody Funderburk should be back in a couple of days coming off the paternity list. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw Prielipp get a couple of starts, although who knows, maybe Kendry Rojas isn't built out as much right now as Connor Prielipp is, and there's a couple days off built in coming up, so I think they can get him in here and get a couple starts. So that's likely how it's going to go, at least early on while Abel's out.
We will start with a softball question for Dan. Dan's cat made a cameo on a recent show, and a fan named Mustache Steve asks, is Dan's cat named after Kramer? His cat's name is Cosmo. My late dog was named Bosco, which is a Seinfeld reference as well. Dan, is your cat named after Cosmo Kramer?
Yes, I did not get to do the naming, but let's just say that when Seinfeld is on in syndicated reruns at 7:00 in the off season, it happens every 3 to 6 months where it aligns on one of those channels. That's typically what we watch. So yes, that cat is named after Cosmo Kramer. The girl cat is named Salem after the cat from Sabrina the Teenage Witch. That does not. We watch a lot of TV.
Big fan.
Do you watch Sabrina?
Big fan.
I did not. Again, I didn't get to name either of these cats. I was allowed to say yes in the selection of the cats or no in the selection of the cats, but I did not get to name them. But oddly enough, that cat's first name was Gilbert when we got him from a rescue. Does not fit his personality. He's much more of a Cosmo. So
Gilbert.
He's yeah.
Big into birds.
Um, Bryce BH 1820 asked what I thought was a fun question, in how modest it is. Who is the single most important player in the entire Twins system if they are going to be competitive slash make the playoffs in 2027? So
Right.
we're not going to ask about this year. We're going to look ahead. Who do you guys think is the most important player, I guess, just in general in the organization?
I mean, for me, not knowing much of the depth or anything, the guy starting tonight seems to be a pretty good choice. I mean, if he shows up and is lights out, like there's a starter for next year, that you can kind of write and pen. It's always good to have starting rotation. That you can't argue with that. That's the hottest commodity there is, and from the rest of the guys down, they fill in bullpen arms, whatever. But you're asking me, it's having a starter that you can depend on, especially this guy's going to come out and throw 95 as a starter. Like, go ahead and ride him into the sunset.
Okay, so I'm gonna totally weasel out of giving a set answer on this because it's April and I want to see what Brooks Lee can do at shortstop. It's been defensively not great so far. He's -6 defensive runs saved. I also think over the course of the year that could be closer to like a -2, which is still not what you need better than that at shortstop. The Twins are 11 defensive runs saved behind Bobby Witt and Kansas City. They're +5 at shortstop. So it could be Kalen Culpepper potentially because that's likely the guy that's going to come up. But I still think he needs a lot of time. I think his bat can play right now. I've talked to people about that. His bat can play right now. There would be inconsistencies with the bat, but he has absolutely got the skill set to do it. I think they want to see defensive consistency out of him at shortstop. And there's questions about whether or not Kalen Culpepper is a long-term shortstop himself. He might project better to be a third baseman. So I will go with either Emmanuel Rodriguez or Walker Jenkins because Matt Wallner is getting the service time up there. Trevor Larnach is getting the service time up there. James Outman, we don't know what his future holds with the Twins, and those are three of the guys blocking the paths of Emmanuel Rodriguez and Walker Jenkins, who are potential stars. So I think Rodriguez has made some really good strides and is a very interesting prospect these first 3-4 weeks of the season at AAA so far. His swing, he's been a selective hitter early on, and he's had trouble staying on the field over the course of his career. He's averaged 59 games a season for his career so far, but he has been a lot more aggressive early in counts, and we're seeing it pay off. And he's looking like this is something they clearly have worked on with him for a while, and he's showing it. And this is changing his prospect profile. I think he will jump up the charts if he can stay on the field and continue this level of production with the aggressiveness at the plate. He's got a good eye. He just always has been very selective. So realistically, the difference maker for me out of everybody that's close potentially is him. I mean, Walker Jenkins looks like a future stud, but he's also really young. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's 21. So I think Emmanuel Rodriguez most likely would be that answer, but I do need to see what Brooks Lee can provide more than 23 games at shortstop. I want to know that it's better than this or this is what we should expect and needs to be moved off the position. Because if it's -6 defensive runs saved, when it gets warm and he's moving freer, all that stuff, when everybody's moving freer on the field, that's not tenable. But if he can improve, because he was about -2 over the last 2 months of the season in August and September, I think he's more that. But and if his bat is playing, I think you can live with that for a while. But where everything is right now, I'm in a holding pattern on that answer. And we have till 2027 based off of who was the question? Was it you said Bryce?
It's from Bryce. Yes.
Yeah, Bryce.
He wants an answer now, man.
He does. And we have time.
That was a 2-for-1 because the final question we had was what is the path for Emmanuel Rodriguez to get called up, and basically the answer is
injuries.
One of those guys has to get out of the way somehow or another. Rodriguez, 23 years old, he's at AAA right now, hitting 271 in 17 games of the season. But as Dan said, one of the top prospects in the system. That's all the questions we had for today. We did forget to get to one fun item earlier that I guess is a nice note to end on. The Twins social media team up to it again last night. They had a little fun after the win. They posted to X, things you can get in a dozen: eggs, roses, Mets losses. That is, they went for it there, guys.
Choosing violence.
Yeah.
This is like the third time that because I got some headlines out of this. I saw John Heyman mentioned it this morning. I saw Awful Announcing wrote a story about it. They're getting some traction. This feels a lot like, ABS. We want to figure out what value it has and what it's adding to the team. I wish social media could add wins and losses to the team, because Cassie and her crew are killing it. They're having some fun, and hey, they're making waves. It's entertaining.
Between this and the Timberwolves, Jaden McDaniels calling out every single Denver Nugget defender the other night.
That's my Minnesota, one of my good friends, Tom Schreier. His question, I heard his voice in the background. I was like, that was just an innocent question. Jaden Daniels was throwing him under the bus, man. It was like
it's like entirely too much trash talk from Minnesota sports right now. I'm not used
amazing,
to this,
right? Hey, they've been kicked. Minnesota sports has been kicked for so long. It's nice to see some of these outsiders ignoring Minnesota nice and just killing people.
With that, Wednesday, 6:10 Central start time for Connor Prielipp's Major League debut. Thursday, also 6:10 start time for the finale. That's Joe Ryan back on the mound for that one. The Twins are off to Tampa after that for weekend series. We'll be back with you Friday to recap what happened in New York and set up the Tampa series. Until then, good luck to Connor Prielipp. Go Wild, go Timberwolves, and we will see you next time on Twin Cities territory. If you like what you heard, please let us know in the comments, like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on Friday. Thanks, everybody.